Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by. We are here for the first debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. It is going to be probably awful, let's be honest, but it's got to happen. And as long as it's happening, we might as well all watch it together and go through it, do some fact checking, and do what needs to happen to ensure that we get a fuller picture of what's being said and what's not being said. Just for instance, they're not talking about climate change tonight, which of course is less than ideal. Now, a few things. One, the debate is going to be starting at 9 o'clock. So in about half an hour, I have the feed ready to go, but I don't have it up yet because it'll just be in the corner, not doing anything. There shouldn't be copyright issues tonight with copyright strikes. A lot of people are streaming it. We're probably using the C-SPAN feed, so you won't also have to see, commentary from either MSNBC or Fox or whoever, just further drilling into your brain. So hopefully everyone's doing well. Lots of people here. Great to see. Hope everyone's having a decent night. A few things to look for tonight, obviously, is, how does Trump approach this? Trump is, again, you might think the polls are not fully accurate. You obviously would be right in noting that there's still a lot of room to go before the election, but the fact of the matter is that, Trump is clearly in a losing position right now. And so there really needs to be a discussion about, is he really going to swing for the fences? Is he just going to say whatever he can to hold on? Like, how desperate is he? And of course, with both Trump and Biden, there are going to be questions of, do they hold up over 90 minutes? How do they hold up when they're forced to go off script? How do they handle questions about their personal fitness as well as their ideological fitness? There's going to be a lot of things happening here. In terms of policy, again, as we note, one thing that's not going to be on the table is the question of climate change. Despite the fact that large swaths of the United States have recently had major forest fires, we saw that in Oregon, the skies were literally red, and in California, they were orange. And it's not going to be a topic of debate tonight. And I get it, there's a lot of important things, but I think that having climate change not being a part of this debate, at least directly, is unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. Elisabetta says, hi, everybody. I'm Italian, following from Italy. Thank you so much for that. That's great to see. I know it's probably a little bit late, so thank you for spending some time with us this evening / early morning for you. But, so what are people thinking? A couple things. One, if you're new to the channel, click subscribe. Cover U.S. politics, North American politics. Put out at least one video a day, pretty much every day. So if you like that, click the subscribe button. And stick around. Click the like button. The more people that click like, leave a comment, it helps drive people to the stream so more people can watch it with us. Usually I find the more people, the more interesting a chat. Yeah, Christoph says it's 2:39 here in Europe. I did set my alarm, Christoph. I'm guessing, are you on Central European time? Chase, I'm not exactly sure who sets it. I'm guessing the moderator has a large role to play in formulating what topics she or he thinks is important. And I guess Chris Wallace, who is the moderator tonight, maybe selected those. Although it could be, discussions between the debate commission and the moderator. I would be surprised if the candidates themselves got to pick. Because then, for instance, it would be unlikely that, say, Donald Trump would allow discussions on, say, COVID. I don't know if that would happen, right? So, I'm guessing it's a mixture of various factors. Austria, yeah, that would make sense, yeah. And of course, another thing to note is if any of the controversies that we've been seeing kind of come up in the actual debate, a couple things, and you can check out some of my recent videos. I'll just post a couple links in the description. You can watch them either, after the debate, or maybe if you want to watch them as we get ready. But this is Trump basically asking. This is Trump basically asking for the debate commission to spy on Biden's ears, which is of course absurd. I don't think that's appropriate, and I think obviously any reasonable person would turn that request down. But Trump has made it, and Trump has also suggested that Joe Biden is on performance-enhancing drugs, that he's using something, whether it's Adderall or whatever, and he's doing whatever it takes to stay awake for the debate, right? That's a crucial role. I don't know. We're going to see if Trump brings up those accusations directly. That's going to be something to look for. Samantha, and one thing, I'll try to pop into the questions every now and then, but if you guys drop a super chat, things like that, I'll be sure to get to it, mostly in real time during the actual debate. Samantha asks, the Breonna Taylor grand jury news, thoughts? I mean, a lot's in flux right now. So for those who don't know, last week, the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case came down with an indictment, but only on one of the officers, and only basically for shooting into the adjacent apartments. And that was woefully insufficient on my end, but not that surprising, because police rarely face the full consequences of their actions. That's my opinion. But further to that, what we've seen since is that there's been a lot of secrecy around the grand jury proceedings, and now one of the grand jurors is basically demanding that it all be made public, and the district attorney, the attorney general involved, they don't want that. And so it leads a lot of people to believe that what's in those reports is actually more damning of the police and of the justice system in that particular case. So I don't want to comment too much further than that, because there's a lot in flux, but it seems like the story isn't over. I don't know if eventually there are going to be charges or anything like that, but it does seem to me like, politically at least, the grand jury is not settled. I mean, the FBI might be looking to it. I haven't seen that, Chase. I haven't seen that. It would be interesting to see how they would approach it. Usually they try to stick to federal crimes, and this isn't one, but it might happen. It could be the sort of thing that maybe, frankly, the result of the election might affect things. Maybe a Biden presidency faces more pressure to, at the very least, look like they're doing something, right? Like, look like they're doing something, than actually do it. And so we'll have to see about that. Yeah, that'll be another question. As a lot of people are noting in the comments, will there be a question about accepting the election results? One, Chris Wallace asked both Trump and Clinton that 4 years ago when he moderated one of these debates, and Trump refused to basically answer. He also asked Trump that was it a month ago now, maybe 2 months ago now, in their famous interview that went really badly for Trump. And Trump again failed to answer. And then, of course, last week, Trump again failed to commit to a peaceful transition of power. But more than that, basically said he wants to systematically destroy the mail-in ballots, which, of course, are going to be in the millions this election, tens of millions, and which are mostly, not exclusively, but are going to be mostly Joe Biden voters. just because Biden supporters in general are taking calls to social distancing and those sorts of things more seriously. This debate is being hosted by the Debate Commission. So it's not hosted by a network. All the networks are running it with their own, panels. But it's going to be moderated by Chris Wallace, who works for Fox News. So it's hosted by somebody who's seen as a relatively respected conservative moderator. Like he's from Fox. He's a conservative guy, but he hasn't been afraid to criticize. He hasn't been afraid to criticize Donald Trump, nor has he been afraid to occasionally give some praise to Joe Biden. And so I think a lot of people are going to see this as, again, in relative terms, a fair moderator. Now, again, there are questions about how, because climate change isn't on the actual discussion list, maybe that's a sign that if he's not partisan to Trump, he's partisan against some of the important issues that matter to non-conservatives. Maybe that's a way of putting it. But I don't think this is an egregious host. Question mark asks, Biden is going to be drugged? No way he isn't. I mean, look, I can't speculate on that. Look, let's be honest. That's an accusation that's coming from the Trump campaign and a lot of Trump supporters. They've been saying it for a long time now. Some days Biden is good, some days Biden is not so good, and that means that he's clearly, on the days that he's doing well, he's on something. He's using some sort of product, and that is what's causing him to be a better performer. On the other hand, you have people suggest almost the same thing for Donald Trump, that Donald Trump uses Adderall and other substances to perk himself up before big events, and that, for all of the things he accuses Joe Biden of, which is, cognitive decline, dementia, Donald Trump has also displayed those things. So frankly, you can't prove that either of these men are going to be using some sort of performance-enhancing drug. You can't. But those accusations are being flung by both sides at one another. What I will say is I believe both of these men, and I'm not making this up, and I'm not alone. We've talked about it on the channel. A majority of the people polled, at least in the polling I've seen, think both Trump and Biden lack a lot of the fitness needed to be president. Like the mental, and for Trump it's mental and physical, I believe, but for Biden it's only mental, to be president. They believe that. And so I think it's fair to note that that's a real point of discussion in general, but that even if it's true, the fact of the matter is people don't always go through these sorts of things at the same pace. You don't always, when you start having some sort of physical or mental decline, act the same way. When you're sick or when you're unwell, you have good days and you have bad days. And that's not always related to, am I on medication or not? It could be related to a whole bunch of things which have nothing to do with medication and those sorts of things. And so from my perspective, at least, it really is pointless to speculate about that beyond partisanship, if anybody's on drugs. Right? People getting pumped for the debate. Yeah, there are going to be questions about finances and whatnot. I do expect something about the taxes, or at least Biden's going to try to bring it in. I mean, it is relevant. Personal finances do matter for a few reasons, as some people note. If you are very much in debt, it could create greater potential conflicts of interest. Not necessarily. Again, I don't want to accuse people of being weaker because they're in debt, but it is like, you could build a list of what are things that people could either use to bribe and or blackmail you, your financial status could be one of them. And being heavily in debt is part of that, right? And so I do expect that to come up. And it'll be interesting to see how Trump handles it. You know, to some degree, Trump from his base gets away with lying. And 4 years ago, it worked because he had no record to criticize, and Hillary Clinton was deeply unpopular. Biden is less unpopular than Clinton. I believe Biden is actually fairly neutral on his favorability ratings, whereas Clinton was deeply unpopular. And so now Trump not only has to lie and lie and lie to keep his base, he somehow has to find a way of getting back some of those people, or getting enough people that currently don't vote to vote for him, to make up what is likely anywhere from like a 6 to 12 point margin between him and Biden. And yeah, like I don't know if just saying the New York Times tax report is fake news. I don't know if that's going to be good enough. Well, Christoph, you're right. Trump's fans don't care about facts. They don't. At least not most of them. But Trump, in this election, has already been president for nearly 4 years, right? And now it's like, okay, you could get away with just bold lying 4 years ago. This time, though, it kind of looks like you might need to do a little bit more. You might need to do a little bit more. And so that'll be something certainly to look at. I don't know what's going to be happening there. Let me check something. So yeah, the debate is going to be starting in just a little bit. We're going to throw on the stream soon. I still have it in the background. But that's what's going to be at play. So during the actual debate, we're going to do our best to really go into all sorts of things around fact checking. I'm not a strict fact checker, of course, but we'll do our best. People in the comments, feel free to contribute. I guarantee Trump will lie, but Biden will also tell a few flubs too. I mean, look, there's no need to make false equivalencies here. I think Biden's awful. I do, but Trump lies endemically, right? He lies more in a few minutes than often, say, a regular candidate, Republican or Democrat, will lie in a whole debate. Like, every candidate will at one point in a debate, whether it's because they tell a half-truth, or they make a mistake or something, will say something that's untruthful, or more accurately, not factual. But Trump will often lie multiple times in a sentence. And so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. There is no live fact-checking. That was one, and some people have been noting that in the comments. There is no live fact-checking in this debate. Like, some people wanted a, maybe at the end of a segment, Chris Wallace would be a team of fact-checkers, and he would read out, Mr. Trump, you said this, but actually that's false. Or Mr. Biden, you said this, that's false. Could you clarify? Could you respond? Let's let your opponent clarify. You said that Donald Trump said this or Biden said that, but he actually didn't. What did you actually say, sir? And those sorts of things. And that's not going to happen. On the one hand, I think that's bad. I think it's bad that we're not getting that actual, live fact checking. On the other hand, in general, the media is doing a better job than 4 years ago. They're doing a better job than 4 years ago of doing fact checking at all. So even if it comes during the post-debate, even if it comes from some of the networks, there's more fact-checking now than there was 4 years ago. And it's not always perfect. The fact-checkers can be wrong too. But on balance, it's been better. It's been better. So I'm going to get this up on the screen. Let me know about volume and stuff, guys.
And graciously provided to fly.
Let me get the stream here. So I'm just going to reduce myself to the corner here. And we're going to get this.
Also, special thanks to some people in the network business, in the journalism business.
So right now you're just seeing the
CBS
basic
Radio,
start here.
Intercom Communications. In the hotel behind us, the Intercontinental.
Just going to get the picture here. I just got to get the picture.
Which is called the Media Filing Center. There's only, I guess, there's about 700 people in there today. We usually have 3,000 to 5,000 people in the Media Filing Center. And so with the cut down that we've had to, you can look on this audience, we normally have 9.
Louder? Okay, you guys want it louder? Okay, let me get the desktop audio up.
Have the opportunity to be here tonight. But the National Press Club.
Let me know what that's like.
Tonight,
let me know what that's like. I want to make sure everyone can hear.
Those journalists in Washington who couldn't be here tonight, and so we're very, very thankful for that.
Okay, I just adjusted it. Let me know again.
I see faces here I've known and been in the audience before.
Louder again. Okay.
There will be, in the estimate of most experts, close to 120 million people watching this debate this evening.
Hear that? 120 million people going to watch this tonight.
It'll be on their computers. It'll be on their iPads.
A little louder. Okay, I'm going to go. I can go. I don't want to go too much, but how's that?
And those 120 million, or however it works out to be, deserve to be able to listen and observe on this stage tonight. These two men put forth the reasons why they should be elected president of the United States. And that's why it's been our history in the general election debates that we urge our audiences not to clap.
Let me know now.
Not to yell. Just sit silently.
That's good. Okay. Let me test it for now.
We're trying to ascertain who they're going to vote for.
Okay. Good stuff.
Now,
good stuff.
Exactly at 9 o'clock, you're going to hear a lot of noise behind you. If you turn around now, you can take a quick look. There's 3 on this side and 3 on this side. And these are the major nets.
120 million
at 9
people.
sharp, you're going to hear them all go on air. And so it makes a little noise, so don't be afraid by it. And I must, at the end, really thank the people that you saw on your way here tonight and you see around here. The United States Secret Service, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Department of Homeland Security, and Clemson University.
So they're just doing all this, you know, they're gonna.
Is working with us and monitoring.
I don't think it was Chris Wallace who vetoed the fact-checking.
So there's so
RC. I think it was the commission.
And women and the police.
Chris Wallace said something interesting where he basically said, "I want to be invisible in this debate," which I think is very fascinating because I get what he's trying to say. He doesn't want to make the debate about him. He doesn't want to make the debate the Chris Wallace show. It's like he's the facilitator of the debate. It's not him, you know, in the same debate as Trump and Biden, right? Like, I think we all get that, but like,
join Frank,
you know, it's
Janet and fellow board members.
It's also
including Yvonne Howe,
you know,
and Jane Harmon, who are with us tonight, and
it's something
you
that
to the 23rd
I don't
presidential debate sponsored.
I don't think is going to go very well
by the Commission on Presidential Debates. As Frank said, I'm the Commission's newest co-chair, and as the new kid on the block, I am proud.
So
to
some
work
people are doing live
those
fact checking, yes.
Who have been engaged in this initiative.
I think if you're trying to be neutral in a debate, that's fair. But neutrality doesn't always mean
of our political
not
process.
taking a side. If one person is wrong and one person is right on a mostly factual issue, then neutrality means actually saying that.
They can be even more consequential.
Who do I think is most likely to win, Frank? I mean, it's Biden right now. The polls are in his favor. A lot of the economic indicators aren't great for Trump. It's not a slam dunk like a lot of Biden supporters, I think, are saying or acting like. But Biden's the favorite. Biden's the favorite, and I think he's in a better position than Hillary because one, Trump can't surprise people again like he did in 2016, like he's already president. But also, Hillary had some big leads at times.
And this effort has spawned.
But then she also had some waves where her and Trump would be tied, and that hasn't really happened. Biden has had a very consistent lead. It's been higher some weeks and lower others, but he's never really been, you know, tied with Trump, you know, in the last 6 months at least.
By watch groups in all 50 states, from a hair salon owner in Cleveland Heights hosting 10 employees to the Atlantic Council
polls can be overrated, but we got to remember that
80,000.
The polls weren't that bad in 2016.
or
what
be
happened
lost,
is that
but to share
the nature of
views
the
with those
Electoral
who
College
agree
means that
and
slight
those who
variances
don't,
that even a
to
good poll
listen
can't always catch
respectfully
in the right
to
or
each
wrong
other's
places, depending on
opinions.
your perspective, can change
We
the
are
result.
pleased that the
And
Commission's
so the polls did
longest-standing
slightly
supporters,
underestimate
Judy and
Hillary's
Peter
vote, or
Kovler,
overestimate it,
are in the
but only
audience
by about
tonight.
1%. But because the election was close
For-
and Hillary's vote
for
was
32
overestimated in a
years,
few key
The
states,
Judy and Peter
then
Blum
it
Kovler
changed the result.
Foundation has
So
given
if
its
Biden's
trust
leading the
to
polls by 10, it's
nonpartisan mission
unlikely that the
of the
polling
Commission.
aggregates are missing
We are
that badly.
deeply grateful for their belief in our work and their extraordinary contribution.
People are saying Howie Hawkins
to
should
the
be included.
2020
I mean, I
debates.
definitely think more ideological
It is
diversity
now my
and
distinct
different
honor
parties should be
to
included. The
introduce
commission
Dr.
does have a
Tom
principle
Mihaljevic,
for how you become
President
included,
of
and
the
it
Cleveland Clinic,
requires
and
you
Barbara Snyder,
have enough,
President of Case
be on
Western
enough
Reserve
ballots
University.
that you
Thank
could
you very much.
hypothetically win the Electoral College. So you have to be on enough state ballots to have a chance of winning. So the Green Party couldn't be included because I don't believe they're on enough state ballots. And you also need to be consistently polling above 15.
On behalf of
So
Cleveland Clinic,
the
it is my
Libertarians would be
pleasure to
closer
welcome
because
you
they're on
to the city of Cleveland.
every ballot. Like
Tonight,
you can vote for the
you join
Libertarians in
us
every
in the
state. You
beautiful
can't for the
Sensen
Greens.
Pavilion
But they're
of the
not
Health
polling anywhere
Education
near
Campus
15.
at Cleveland
Whether
Clinic.
those numbers are too
We share
unfair
this,
to smaller parties or
campus
not
with
is
our
like a
partners
debate.
from
But
Case
it
Western
is
Reserve
possible
University.
for a third-party candidate
This
to get on the
building is
stage.
very
But it
special to
hasn't
us.
happened since Ross
It was
Perot
opened
back in
just
'92.
a year ago as a place for students, medical, nursing, and dental.
Here in
to
Canada,
begin
all
their
the
professional
parties were
journeys
included,
by learning
even the
together as
smaller
teams.
ones.
At
We have
that time,
six.
as
We
we
had
were
6
opening
parties
this
included
campus,
in our
none of us
official
could have
debates. We had some
managed to
unofficial ones, but
imagine
our
that we
2
would soon
official
face
debates,
a
one in French and one in
worldwide
English,
pandemic.
included 6
it
party
happened,
leaders, including
we
parties that
converted
we're gonna
this
we're gonna get
building
about we're gonna
into
get
a
5% or less of the
COVID-19
vote.
Surge hospital. The space in which you are sitting right now had 1,000 hospital beds.
Well,
We
Shays
called
makes
it
a point. Isn't
the
it the
Hope
case that the
Hospital.
polling on swing states counts the
Thankfully,
most?
the
Yeah,
surge
it
did not
does.
come in
And
Ohio.
the polling in swing states looks at least
tonight,
decent for Biden.
this
But
building
there
serves
comes a
another
point
purpose.
where
In
the
support of our
national
democracy,
numbers
and it is a
start to make it
historic
hard
occasion
for Trump,
us and for
even
our city.
with his baked-in electoral
We are
college advantage.
proud
I
to
think
support
somebody said like
Commission on
Nate
Presidential
Silver
Debates as their
did an
health
analysis where he
security
basically
advisor.
said, look, if
We at
Biden
Cleveland
needs
Clinic
to win
and
by
our
4
70,000
or
caregivers
3,
have
I
been
believe it
serving
was,
the health
to have
needs in Cleveland since
to have the edge
1921,
on the electoral
nearly
college.
100 years. Yet,
Statistically,
our
you know,
organization
but if he's winning by
and
7,
our caregivers
then
have
he's got like a
never shone
99% chance of
than
winning.
during this pandemic.
Because like technically, yeah, you could
pandemic
win by
has
10
brought
and
out the
still
best
lose.
of
But
our
the way the
organization
math works
and
in the
our
electoral
caregivers of our
colleges
city
is
and
if you're
our
winning
state.
by 10 nationally,
partnership
it
and
means you're winning
collaboration,
most of the close
we see
states,
how much we can
like
accomplish when we
Pennsylvania,
work
Michigan,
together.
Wisconsin,
And we are
etc.
particularly
And so
proud of our partnership
state
with
polls
Case
matter,
Western
but if you're
Reserve
winning by
University.
10, you're
With
still
that,
winning those
I
close
would like
races
to
in those
introduce
states.
my colleague and friend, president of Case Western
I do like
Reserve
pineapple on
University,
pizza, personally.
Barbara Snyder.
Thank you, Tom. Case Western Reserve is honored to co-host this presidential debate with our partners at Cleveland Clinic and delighted to show you this spectacular space we created together. Research has long shown that team-based healthcare leads to better outcomes for patients. Yet nearly every academic institution continues to prepare students in separate buildings, literally in silos. Yet after spending years learning only with students from the same profession, doctors with doctors, nurses with nurses, and so on, they are suddenly expected to know how to work in teams once they get their diplomas. We knew there had to be a better way, and together we built it. When not filled with a stage and seats, this atrium gives
Trump
hundreds
is
of
trying
students
to rig the
a
election.
huge
That's
open
my
space
viewpoint.
to study, talk,
That is my
and
viewpoint.
simply be together.
He
The
might not
entire
need to. Maybe
building
he'll win.
provides
I don't think it's
multiple
impossible Trump
spaces
can
for
win.
them to come together,
But his goal is very
supported
clear.
by an academic model that
Use
emphasizes
the
opportunities
Supreme Court,
to learn
use
with
local
and
officials
from
when
one
possible
another.
to try to
Add
invalidate the
state-of-the-art
mail-in ballots. Look,
technology,
Rick Scott,
and we know
a
our
Republican
graduates
senator,
will be
put
uniquely
forward a bill in the
prepared to
Senate
excel in
to
team-based
stop
care
all ballots
and
from being
ultimately
counted
to lead it.
24 hours after polls
Along
close.
the way, Cleveland Clinic and
That's
Case Western
very
Reserve
clearly
also
an effort
learned from one
to
another.
stop the ballots
Among
being
the most
counted of
valuable
mail-in
lessons
votes.
was that
That's
through
that's
collaboration,
the only
we
argument
achieved
you can
far
use.
more than
The
either of us
Republicans
could
will
achieve
try and
alone.
steal this. They will.
Thank you,
And look
Tom,
again,
for
like
being
I don't
such a
think the
wonderful
Democrats are
colleague
always
and
the good guy.
friend.
You can
Thank you to
argue
the
a lot of ways
Commission
the
for
Democrats have
giving
been
both of
trying
our
to force the
organizations
Green Party
the
off
opportunity
the
to be
ballot in
part
some
of this
states. Now, in
historic
some of
event.
those
It
cases,
is a true
the Green
privilege
Party
to
missed
contribute to our
deadlines and the
nation's
rules are rules. But in
democratic
others,
process.
you know,
And thank you
the
all for
Democrats
watching.
worked hard to get them off the ballot. But there's no comparison. Trump literally wants to shred your ballots. Did the stream freeze here? One sec.
Thank you, Tom and Barbara,
there it
very
is.
much. Most valuable
Let me,
player award for this evening goes
that
to Toby
picture here.
Cosgrove. We couldn't have
There you
done
can
it
see
without you.
Melania
Thank you.
come in and others. Let me
One
get the
housekeeping bit
the
for
actual
the audience.
picture here. The picture froze
as soon as
on
this
me.
debate is over, if you will please remain seated, you will be shown which way to
That should be good now.
exit.
Okay.
And please
Sometimes
stay
the
where you
picture
are
freezes
until
on my
that
screen, but you
happens.
should still have the
I would
audio.
like
But
to now
I'll usually be able to
introduce Chris
take care of
Wallace,
that.
the moderator of this evening's debate.
Well, yeah, most of Trump's kids have the daddy didn't love me syndrome. I think besides Ivanka, all the other kids really seem like they have this syndrome where, you know, Trump didn't really like most of them, and so they're all jealous and still fighting for his approval. Now, this audio issue is on them. Our feed is good for audio. So I'm going to just double check to make sure, but this should be... I'm going to reload, but the audio is I believe good. So we're going to see this.
Our campaign 2020 coverage continues with the first presidential debate. C-SPAN, your unfiltered view of politics.
Well, the first of 3 official presidential debates begins tonight in Cleveland. President Trump and former Vice President Biden will spend 90 minutes debating and sparring over policy and personality. That all begins at 9 p.m. Eastern Time from the Health Education Campus of Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio. Good evening, and thanks for joining us on C-SPAN for our coverage of the first presidential debate.
I'm just gonna get the a better feed because that one the audio was cutting out there, and I wanted to ensure that we. This is the this is on their feed, so let me I'm gonna just YouTube this because this is very clearly on their feed. I'm gonna Twitter this and see if Chris Wallace isn't speaking. Because this is on their feed. Yeah. This is on their feed. Everyone on Twitter is talking about it. Comment here. Chris Wallace opens with the following remarks. His mic is muted. This is so poetic with irony. Some feeds, so we're gonna see what happens here. They're gonna fix it eventually. So, nope, there we go. You can hear the applause. Shit show 2020. And there's a Melania Trump coming in. There's Kimberly Guilfoyle, I think, back there. Is that her? She was the lady that, she's Don Jr.'s, I think, partner, girlfriend, what have you. And then she was also the lady that freaked out. The best is yet to come. You remember that lady? All right. So let's I don't know what's taking them so long. I don't know, like, if they just have some last minute things, but we're waiting for Trump and Biden, so we're gonna see. The debate on the screen is gonna look the same as usual. Louise says, "Thank you for doing this, Christo." Not a problem. I was gonna be watching it anyway, so I figured I would watch it with other folks because this is I mean, this would be awfully depressing to watch on my own, let's be honest. So I figured I would watch it with other people. I figured I would watch it with other folks. So here we are, waiting for the actual debate. For those wondering, everything should be going as per normal, but we are still waiting on the actual candidates to come out. Chris Wallace has given some remarks, but his feed was oddly silent from the feed we have, so we'll see if that gets rectified. A couple things. One, if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button. We cover politics daily here on the channel, so do click that subscribe button. And if you are, a subscriber, but you haven't clicked that bell, be sure to click that. And also click the like button if you like this stream. It'll help let people know that we're here. So I'm wondering, let me see. All right, here we go. I just wanted to get that. The image. Okay, it wasn't actually. Bruce, it was so, I thought it was too. It wasn't. It was so crazy that they weren't moving, but we're good, apparently. We see we're focusing on Chris Wallace right now. We're going to see if we actually hear him.
Good evening.
There we go. Okay, they fixed the audio.
Campus of Case Western Reserve University and the
Here we go.
Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the 2 candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate.
So the reason I think they said that whole
promised to remain silent.
The questions aren't being given because there was a rumor going around the internet today that Chris Wallace had leaked the questions to Joe Biden, which of course is baseless. But it was all over right-wing like Facebook and such.
As we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
All right.
How you doing, man? How are you? I'm well.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call and abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight: why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be
she is not beloved by all.
We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know.
Even
So
on labor issues,
she
she's
will
often
be
stood with
outstanding. She's
employers
going to
against
be,
workers.
As good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her.
From a constitutional perspective, he's correct. The president has a right to put somebody on the Supreme Court if the Senate agrees to it.
The only difference is they try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you.
There was significantly more time between the Merrick Garland appointment and the election than this time. About
first of all,
4 or 5 times the amount of days.
Thank you for doing this, and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is, and that say occurs when they vote for United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that.
Now, Biden's position here is the popular one.
He's in the Supreme Court right now.
It's not unanimous, of course, but if you poll Americans, most people think that they should wait until after the election to appoint the next justice, whoever it is.
Now, if they
I think about 60% of Americans believe that they should wait, which means that includes some Trump voters. By definition, it includes at least a small amount of Trump voters.
Right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February.
All right. There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
That period of time.
I'm surprised Biden's not really leaning into the hypocrisy argument, right?
I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected
like he's
for
not
4
leaning
years.
into the whole they said
2060.
He's not leaning into that.
Is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem
Zachary,
that you have
thanks for doing this, Chris. Zachary, thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much.
180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree.
That's a lie.
Number one,
Biden at best supports a public option,
what I proposed,
which will allow you to keep private health care.
We expand Obamacare.
But
And
frankly, I don't even know if he's going to go that far. I think Biden's goal is to go right back to Obamacare, which is not socialized medicine in any way.
Trying to win the nomination that I won. We're saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do.
I mean, this is like, look, like it or not, I think Biden's wrong on his position, but Biden fought Bernie on this issue. This was one of the big issues. Biden defended private health care against Bernie.
And they're going to dominate you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the Democratic Party is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is
I am the Democratic Party. That sounds a little. That sounds a little cocky.
The 200,000 people that have died on his watch. How many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me about this.
I'm happy to talk about this.
And if you were here, it wouldn't be 200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You didn't want me to ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
all right, gentlemen,
Europe, which was heavily infected. You would have been much later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr. President.
You're talking about 2 million people.
Mr. President, as the moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is already begun.
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
why is it on the ballot? It's not on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the court.
I don't think so.
In the court. Well,
there's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
and
just
you don't
be quiet
know
for a
her
minute?
view on Roe v. Wade.
I don't know.
This is very interesting here.
All right, let's talk.
Trump suggesting that
we got a lot to unpack here.
This is not going to involve Roe v. Wade is
on health care.
I can't call it a lie because it's not a provable fact, but it's definitely disingenuous.
The Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years,
Did he just say gooder health care?
To repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I got rid of the individual mandate.
I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a big chunk of Obamacare. That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst part of Obamacare.
Sir,
Chris,
that was the only thing that made Obamacare work.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
And
we will protect people with
President, I'm the moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan.
So that got a little heated there,
to replace
where he sort of tried to lay the
Obamacare.
smackdown on Trump a little bit.
Just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Right. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against big pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. Man. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care. All of the things that we've done, insulin. I give you an example, insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people. The cost, I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water, you want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because they pay just a tiny
fraction. Trump doesn't have a health care plan.
No, but this is big. This is big
like
stuff.
he ran against Obamacare supposedly to give something better.
To ask the vice president, which is he points out
that
you would like to add a public option to Obamacare.
He doesn't have
the argument that he makes,
an alternative.
The Republicans make.
He doesn't have one.
That is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
Well, if I can ask you the question, it will
not
end.
What your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free. in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option, number one.
Joe, you agreed with Bernie Sanders, who's far left, on the manifesto, we call it, and that gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
are you saying you did?
That's a lie.
The fact of the matter is,
the
I
Bernie
beat
Sanders, Joe Biden task force did not include socialized healthcare. It did not. Expressly did not.
Left 2 days early.
It does include lowering the Medicare access age to 60, but not socialized medicine for all.
I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to make sure, because here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just want to make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make sure.
Mr. President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be surprised.
You pick
You'd be surprised.
the wrong guy, the wrong night at the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let him.
There is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan
folks,
that's absolutely
folks,
agreed
do you have
to,
any
and under that
idea
plan,
what
you have
this clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
Do you have any
President.
socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well,
President.
I tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care.
Trump is like, I don't know if this is working or not, because I don't know what the average American likes, but
10 million
God,
people
he
their
is.
health care that they had from their employers
Everything's a lie.
because of his
Everything's
recession.
a lie what he's
Number
saying.
one.
This is
Number
just,
two,
it's
there are 20 million people
egregious.
getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them
Number
better
three.
health care at a much lower price because
and by the way, he
Obamacare
doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a
fixed
plan.
it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done
To an extent, he's doing a lot of work there, guys.
Gentlemen, you realize if you're both speaking at the same time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president. Go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed, they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? Yeah. If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
and I just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster.
Well, I mean, that is true. Obamacare
Premiums
sucks,
are too
but
high.
Trump has
That
provided
doesn't work.
no
So
alternative.
we
and
do want to
leaves
get rid
people
of it.
worse off.
Chris, we want to get rid of it.
I understand it, sir, but I have to give you roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president.
I'm just going to quickly get some water. I'll be right back, guys,
He
while this
has no
horror
plan
show
for
continues.
healthcare.
Of course we do.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right,
He's
I have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing
this is
to
a good
tell
question.
the American people
It's a question that needs to be asked
whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question
you want to put a
is
lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justice,
the
radical
question,
left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so
list?
Right. Gentlemen, I think
this
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the court.
We have ended.
This is interesting.
This segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment.
How do you think that shut up is going to play, guys? Let me know.
Keep yapping, man.
The
I don't
people
know.
understand, Joe.
They sure
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
All right. The second subject
It's an
is
instant. It's a good
COVID-19,
question,
which
and
is
it's
an
a
awfully
tough
serious
one for
subject,
Biden,
so
because
let's try to
if
be
he
serious
says he
about it.
supports
We have
court
had
packing,
more
that's
than
going to light a
7
fire under
million
conservatives. But if he
cases
says
of
he's against
coronavirus
it,
in the
it's going to
United
piss
States,
off
and
a
more
lot
than
of Democrats that want a
200,000
court pack,
people
or at
have
least are
died.
considering
Even
it.
after
And that
we
includes
produce
people in the
a
Senate
vaccine,
like Ed
experts
Markey,
say that it
who want to
could
pack
be
the court.
months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan.
Wrong.
I laid out
Sir,
back in March exactly
so
what we
wrong.
should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out.
Okay, Biden's
and
doing
get
a bit better
people
here.
the help they need to keep their businesses
I think
open.
he's doing a bit better
open
here.
Schools that cost a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault.
See, I
And by
don't
the way,
buy
when you
this
talk about
because
numbers, you
other
don't know how many
countries
people
that
died
are
in China. You don't know how many
that
people
have
died
like
in Russia.
similar
You don't know how many
ideological
people
leaders to
died in India.
Biden
They don't exactly
closed
give you a
down
straight
much
count,
quicker
just so you
and much
understand.
more
But
stringently
if
than
you look
Trump.
at what we've done,
than
I
Trump
closed
did.
it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should
unrelated
have
to
closed
your
our country.
COVID.
Wait a minute.
It's his 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a
And look,
phenomenal
China
job.
could have done better,
We
but
did.
a lot of
We got
countries
the
could have done
gowns,
better.
we
That
got
includes
the masks,
Canada.
We made the
That includes a lot of
ventilators. You wouldn't
countries
have
that
made
did much
ventilators.
better than
and
the
now
U.S.
we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're
Weeks
doing
away. That's not true.
therapeutics
That's a lie,
already.
guys. That's
Fewer
a lie.
people are dying when they get sick.
His own
Far fewer
CDC
people are
director
dying.
says get your
We've done a
masks out
great
because it
job.
could be months,
the only
if not
thing
longer.
I haven't done a
It's
good
not,
job,
it's
and
not
that's
weeks
because
away.
of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give
It's
you
not.
bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you
No,
something.
I
don't
wouldn't say
care.
that's
I've gotten
fair.
used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe,
They both
you
have
could never
circles
done
of the
job
press that
we
like
did.
and or
You don't
hate
have
them.
it in your blood.
I
You
don't
could
think
have
the
never
press
done
is
that job.
either heavily biased
I know how
against
to do
Biden
the
or
job.
Trump. It's not like they're running
I know
against
how to
Bernie,
get the job.
where the
Well, you
press
didn't
was
do very well in
anti-Bernie.
swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
There was far
Yeah,
less.
no
it's apples to
recession.
oranges
made a
to
point,
compare
let him answer.
that.
There was no
And if we
one-
want to go to the
no,
last
we didn't
major
shut down
issue,
the economy.
Ebola, only
This
2
is his
Americans passed
economy
away.
that's he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people. Far more people.
And,
you would have been
and by the way,
months late.
your own,
You were
his
months behind me,
own
Joe.
CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up, he said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't
we
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
& Johnson, Pfizer?
And
Okay,
by the way,
gentlemen, let me move on.
What do you guys think? I think
questions about the future, because you both have touched on one
I
of the.
think
two of the
Biden
questions
has
I'm
had a
gonna
good
ask.
few minutes.
Focusing on the future
That,
for
like,
President Trump,
do you think
have
about the people
repeatedly
you've lost
either contradicted or
and like
been
how
at
they
odds
could have
with
been
some of
saved?
your
I
government's
think
own
that's
top
good. And all
scientists. The
Trump
week
could
before
say
last,
is,
the head of
you
the
would have
Centers
let
for Disease
more
Control,
people
Dr.
die.
Redfield, said
And
it
I
would
don't know
be
if that's going to
summer
play well.
before
If all
the
Trump can
vaccine
say was,
would become generally
you would have
available
sucked harder
to
than
the public.
I
You
sucked.
said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly
In
the
general,
same
these
thing.
questions
Are they
by
both
Chris
wrong?
Wallace are
Well,
pretty
I've spoken
good.
to
I
the
think they're
companies,
fair
and we
questions.
can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing.
They're
because
not
people
just
like
like
this
general
would rather
questions.
Make it
He's giving
political than save
context
lives.
to them,
It
which is
is a very
important.
political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what I
that
call
the
them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
He
Dr.
said it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also
I'm
be
talking
after
about when it's
that.
generally available. not
Well,
when
we're
it's-
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers.
He's just
and
like,
they can
I
do
disagree
200,000
with both
a day.
Fauci and
They're
written
going
out
to
like
be
the
It's all
CDC
set up.
director.
By Easter, this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be
Remember
gone.
when Elon
Miraculous,
Musk was like, there will be
America.
0 cases
By the
by
way, maybe
May?
you could inject
God,
some bleach in
they
your
all
arm,
like
and
so
would
many
take
people
care
got
of it.
that wrong.
This is the
That
same
was
man.
said sarcastically.
That was
you
him.
know that.
I
that was
just-
said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal.
This is the
This
Trump
man is
line.
talking
His
about
supporters use it.
vaccine.
When
Every
he's
serious-
unbelievably
every
caught in a
serious
lie
company
and they
is
can't
talking
even
about
deny it.
Maybe having
He's
a
joking.
vaccine done by the end of the year, but the distribution.
Yeah, look
of
at
that
Trump's
vaccine
face.
will not occur
He
until
is-
sometime
he is
beginning of the
heated,
middle of
man.
next year to get it out. If we get the vaccine, and pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up, though.
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris,
Here's what's
goes
trending
further,
on my Twitter.
saying the
Did
public health
Biden, did
experts,
Trump,
quote,
OMG
will be
Trump,
muzzled,
will you
be
shut up,
suppressed.
man?
Given
is
the fact that
trending.
polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with
1 million
his own
people are
scientists.
watching this on the
You're saying
C-SPAN
Everybody
feed.
knows.
Senator
And
Harris is
1
saying you
million.
can't trust the science.
That includes
no,
us
you can't trust the
indirectly.
scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust
She
us.
said that public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and Fauci,
scientists that are in charge.
By the way,
they will have the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous
Well,
it was gonna
Biden's
be
made a good
back
line
in
about
February,
Fauci,
and he
where he's
didn't
basically
even
said,
tell you.
my first call is going to be, one of my first calls is going to be to ask Dr. Fauci to stay on board, which is to like say, like, I'm not going to treat COVID as a partisan exercise on the scientific side. And also he knows that Fauci is popular with most Americans.
So you
At
said
least
you went to
non-Trump
Delaware
voters,
State, but
like
you forgot
even a
the
lot of
name your
independents.
college.
They like
You didn't go to
Fauci.
Delaware State. You graduated. either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
if you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I
God,
had
that's
closed
petty.
the greatest
That is
economy in
so
the history
petty.
of our country. And by the way, now
Jesus.
it's being built again.
See,
and it's
We're going
going
to get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to talking.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much
we
more
know the
reluctant
stories
than President Trump
from his
about
niece.
reopening
Donald
the
Trump
economy and
had
schools.
someone
Why,
write
sir?
his
Because
SAT
he doesn't
for
have a
him,
plan.
his
If I were
entrance
running,
exam,
I'd
so
know
he could
how-
get into
what the plan
university.
is. You've got to provide these
I'm not saying
businesses the ability to have
Biden's
the money
a
to be
Rhodes
able to
Scholar or
reopen with
anything,
the
but
PPE,
I don't think
as well
he's
as with the sanitation
dumber than
they
Trump.
need. You have to
Tell
provide
that
them
to Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't.
I mean,
meet
it's
with
true.
them.
The Democrats
He
did have a
sits-
package.
he
It's
sits
not
on
good
his
enough.
golf course and-
They
I mean,
left out a lot of
literally,
the
think
good
about
stuff
it.
You
from
probably blame him,
Jayapal
Joe.
and the
What about the
squad,
question
but
of
they did have a
reopenings and the fact-
He wants
relief
to
bill.
shut down this country. And I
And
want
the
to keep it
Republicans
open.
wouldn't hear it
And
out,
we did
really.
a great
He just
thing by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down.
That's not true.
More people
They might
will
be
be
less
hurt
likely
by
to
continuing.
pass
If you
away
look at
from it, but if
Pennsylvania,
you
look
get
at
it,
certain
you still get
states that have been
extremely
shut
ill,
down. They have Democrat
and you
governors.
could have
all.
long-lasting,
One of the reasons they shut down is
lifelong
because they want to keep
illnesses.
it shut down until after the election on
yeah.
November 3rd.
I want to move on to another
because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to
thing.
another
I
subject.
gotta
But
respond.
those,
I
but
wanna
those
move,
states,
gentlemen, I
those
wanna move
states
on to
are
another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
Wants
President
to shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay.
of
You have
masks?
to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've
Hear
had
Chris Wallace
social
laughing
distancing
there.
and all of the
You guys
things
hear
that you have
that?
to. But I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rallies.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say
Vice President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said
no-
A lot
no
of people are
serious
saying
person
that
said the
Trump is
opposite.
going
Well,
too
listen,
hard
I wanna ask you-
in his
Dr.
attacks.
Fauci said the
He did
opposite.
Like,
I
yeah,
wanna
he's
ask
getting
you
a
that.
bit of a
Very
rise
strong.
of Biden, but
Left
he's
in
going
the
to come
Masks
off as
are
being
not
bitter.
good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks good. I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people. Outside, yes, sir.
Most people agree that if Bernie
Vice
was on
President
stage right
Biden,
now,
you are
this would
holding
be
much
an
smaller,
absolute trouncing. Bernie would
events
just
with
nobody
mop
will
the
show
floor
up.
with Trump,
People
and
with-
I agree.
It's true. Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You goes first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
and
not worried
hangars,
about
and we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours' notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
sir.
one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried
this is a
about
good point
you.
here.
He's not worried
Trump
about
has
the people
often
out there
said,
breathing
guys,
one another.
We've had no negative
that,
effect.
I don't worry about
effect.
wearing a mask
We've had
because
no
I can
negative
stay
effect.
away
And
from
we've had
those people.
35,
So he
40,000
doesn't mind
people
his
Just
his
quickly finish up because I want to move
core
on to our
base.
next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally
infecting
irresponsible
one another
the way in which he has
as long
handled
as he's safe.
the social distancing. and
Trump
people
knows
wearing
this is
masks,
deadly.
Basically,
He knows
encourage
it,
him not to.
and that makes it all the
All right,
more.
Ben, he's a fool.
He knows.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
gentlemen? Can we
I
move
mean,
on to
Trump-
the economy?
Yes.
The
Biden
economy
would have a harder time drawing
is,
crowds,
I think it's fair
but
to say, recovering
he would
faster
still draw
than
crowds.
expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second
Not like-
quarter,
not
the
like Trump or
unemployment
Bernie,
rate
though.
fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape.
Trump said we've had no problems at our rallies. Remember how Herman Cain died?
The American people,
You guys
in terms
remember
of the
that?
economy, President
Remember
Trump, in
Herman
this
Cain
segment,
dying?
You go first.
So
Because
we
he got
built the
COVID at a
greatest
Trump
economy
rally?
in history.
That
We
happened.
closed
He
it down
died.
because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed.
This is
They're
a
hurting
conspiracy.
people.
There's no
People know what to do.
evidence
They
that
can social
the
distance,
shutdown
they
is
can wash their
happening
hands,
because
can
they
wear
want
masks,
to hurt the economy
they
to
can do
hurt
whatever
Trump.
they want.
It's not
but
true.
They got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, when you look, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well.
The reason why some of this had to happen so difficult in the States was because they didn't listen at first.
Let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir.
Canada,
We'll now move to you.
We were able to at least partially reopen in most of the
posing
country because we took it
President says it's a
seriously
V-shaped
in those
recovery. You
crucial
say it's a
first few
K-shaped
months.
recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's just
the wrong state.
Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on
That's from the primary, where Biden would always ask for his time. Can I get my time back?
Office, having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir. Well, we are going to get to...
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town, and I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful, but they want their schools open. I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know how I found out? When he took
gentlemen,
we're
going to get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax returns.
I went... you'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report.
That Biden line was great.
Every bank I have.
Show us your taxes.
Totally
and he's like, you'll see them when they're done.
Biden's the assets are extremely good.
That was good. That was really good.
That
was really good.
I'm asking you a specific question.
That was really good.
Let me tell you.
He's not answering the question.
I understand all of that.
He's not answering the question.
Mr. President, I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars,
So
yes.
not 750?
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see it. But let me just tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person.
I was a private business people, guys.
They go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build the building and we get tax credits, like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher on the money a school teacher makes, is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax
Now, some of this, to be clear, is also based on the Obama Biden tax cuts and the Bush tax cuts. So it's not just Trump, like, to be fair. This is baked into generations of taxes that help the rich.
Need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the worst
way,
president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more
the screen's frozen. Let me fix
in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward, because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession?
Well, just take a look at what as the analysis done by Wall Street firms points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth.
At least directly, Biden is only going to raise taxes on
that we have to
well-off
make
people.
The federal government spends $600 billion.
If you make over
$400K
$400K a year, you're fairly well. You're fairly well off. Maybe you're not rich.
And under
but
my
you're
proposal,
certainly not
we're going to
middle
make
class.
sure that every penny of that has to be made.
And I think you are probably
rich.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Jay says I hate right-wing talking points. Yeah, I mean, they're insufferable.
Neoliberal
ones are too, but right-wing talking points are just, they're unhinged.
I got it done.
Absolutely
and you know what happened?
unhinged.
You got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed.
The economy is busted.
Mr. President, Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for the American people.
But let me.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming.
Yeah, indeed.
It
Over
turns out that in
time,
Obama's
Trump's tax
final
plan
3
raises
years as
taxes on
president,
working class people.
More jobs
At first, they
were
got
created,
small cuts,
1.5 million
but 10 years
more
from now,
jobs than in
their
the
tax
first 3
cuts will
years
expire.
Of your presidency.
But they
had the
will not for
slowest
wealthy people and for
recovery
big business.
Since economic recovery since 1929, it was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places.
This argument is always so fascinating to me because it basically admits that corporations give no fucks about working people. When right-wingers say this, the companies will just leave, and then they'll go and say, our great businesses and our great business people that we love so much, when they basically admit they're holding people for ransom.
He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when fact, when there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Excuse
me, Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you're on number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would take a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing. Part of my standard fare.
I'm the guy that brought back the automobile industry.
All right, let him.
We brought back. I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having
and they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit with Mexico.
China ate your lunch, down 18%. China ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
If Trump wants to make this about kids and corruption, I don't know if that's going to go well.
Really? He didn't get $3.5 million?
Mr. President,
totally,
Mr. President, please.
Totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
he got $3.5 million.
That is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr. President, it's an open discussion, please.
It's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr.
Look,
President.
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President, let him answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who?
And you
The media?
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our allies, by the World Bank, by everyone.
Andrew Coyne, who's a famous Canadian conservative commentator, says this is awful. The American humiliation continues. If you guys want to know what Canadians are thinking right now as we watch this.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd
honorably.
like to know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the people who testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do a good job. With you,
go ahead. Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me.
Hey, let me just say to you.
No. Mr. President.
$3.5 million, Joe.
That is simply
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's already...
My family lost a fortune by coming down and helping us with government.
And that's
not true.
This is not about my family or his family.
That's not true.
Your family.
God.
The American people. He doesn't...
This is listen to this right now.
To talk about what
listen to this.
You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about here.
All right, that's the end of the
Listen
segment.
to this
We're
mess.
moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice President,
no. Can I be honest? It's a very important
question. Try to be honest.
He stood up.
No, the answer to the question is no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
that is absolutely
you know what,
not true.
You're doing it.
You're going to have
tape.
True,
gentlemen. I hate to raise my voice, but it seems to be. Why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal. We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do
honestly, I don't know if Biden can refuse to do a debate, Samantha, because the optics, but he should make demands
less than you have. Let's please continue on.
How this is disrespectful.
Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it.
Brianna Joy Gray,
walked away from it like he has done.
on the formerly of the Bernie Sanders camp, says, I don't want to hear from either of these men about race.
What those people look like
Fair.
coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
It is who's
now,
sir.
Second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible.
Look how tense Trump is, guys. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
The bishop
but
of that very church
look
said
how tense
that it
he
was
is
a disgrace.
physically.
The general who was with him
he
said
looks
all
really
he wants to do is
tense.
divide people.
In a way he didn't when he debated Hillary.
This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all.
Yeah, COVID
This
has
man's
disproportionately,
done
which is
virtually
not a
nothing.
surprise,
Look, the
affected
fact is that
poor
you have to
people
look
and
at
people
what
of
he
color. Same
talks
thing in
about.
Canada.
You have to
That's
look at
our
what he
inkling,
did.
at least. In
And what he
Toronto,
did
where
has been
most of the cases have been,
for the African American community.
it's affected a lot of people
President Trump, you have 2 minutes.
in the racialized
Why should
areas
Americans
of those cities.
trust you over your opponent to deal with racism?
You did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did
Hillary
that,
Clinton
and they
said
called you
that, to
super
be clear.
predator, and I'm
Hillary
letting
said
people
that.
out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them
screen looks frozen.
super
I'll fix that,
predators,
guys.
and you've called them worse than that. Because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the
Everybody
words
on the
law
left
enforcement?
who's supporting
Because,
Biden
you know what?
knows
If
he
they
sucks.
called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day, and they put up their hands, and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and, in many cases, radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in
he's right.
in law enforcement.
I mean, I don't know if Biden's going to do enough about it, but he's right. I'm glad that he's saying
that.
The
vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives
I don't know
every day
about that,
to take
Joe.
care of us. But there are some bad apples, and when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen.
Kyle
These
Kulinski
cops
makes
aren't
the
happy
point
to
that
see
Trump,
what
on the
happened
one hand, wants to say
George
that Joe
Floyd.
Biden locked
These
up so many
cops
black
aren't
people,
happy
but
to
then
see
on
what
the other,
happened to
Joe Biden
Breonna
is soft
Taylor.
on crime, and Trump's
Most
got
don't
all
like
the
it,
law enforcement
but we
people
have to
behind
have
him.
a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of a town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place, and you say peaceful protest?
President
No,
Trump,
it's
I'm not
not,
asking.
but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order
Please.
in a moment.
Fine.
This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were
Here it
complaining
is.
that
Trump
they were
thinks it's
asked to
racist
do
against
things
white
that were
people.
absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody
what
else.
Is radical,
and he would know.
What is
it was
radical
totally
about
racist.
racial sensitivity trainings.
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and, frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen.
It's not true.
We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching
Trump's
people
the one that wants
our
to
country is a
distort
horrible
American
place,
history and
it's a
American
racist
contemporary
place,
reality.
And they were teaching people to
by
hate our
basically
country.
saying,
And I'm not going to allow that
there's
to happen.
patriotic
Biden?
Nobody's doing
history,
that.
and that's the true history.
He's racist.
You just don't.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this than he does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know. They don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different
That was
faith.
an interesting little twist there.
Or a different
to
color.
In say, fact, like, you know, working class Catholics like me, that could be good because the Republicans are arguing that the Democrats are attacking Catholics by criticizing Amy Coney Barrett because she's a right-wing Catholic. That's interesting.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson. You go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but
Lord.
The reason is that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these cities
ridiculous.
don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow it.
Are you in favor of law and order? Go
yes,
ahead,
I'm
say
in
it.
favor.
You asked a question, let him finish.
Law and order. Law and order.
Let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more.
If Biden wants to, he can say, like he's been saying, I want to give the police $300 million more a year. Trump wants to cut police
We're now going
budgets
to talk about law and order.
by upwards of $500 million. Federal money to
That's
state
exactly
and
my
local
question.
police
There has been
by
a
about
dramatic
400
increase
some
in
million.
homicides in America.
So Biden
this
wants to give
summer
police more money,
particularly,
Trump
and
less.
you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died, shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've never seen.
He would know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because
this is a good line by Trump,
That's
or by
why
Biden,
the suburbs
excuse me.
are in trouble.
That's
I do
really
want
good.
to talk about this issue of law and order,
really good.
though. And in the joint recommendation
that came
from
by
the
Biden.
Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. Yeah. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means.
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement
This
assistance.
is true.
They need more assistance.
It's
they
100%
need when
true.
they show up for a 9/11 call to have someone with them as
Like,
a
you
psychologist
can
or psychiatrist.
disagree or agree
to
with
keep
it, but
them
Trump's
from
trying to
having
cut police
use
budgets,
force
and
be able
Biden
to
isn't.
talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're
in
talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking about. He's
that's
talking about
exactly-
defunding the police.
That is
No,
not true.
Biden does
He
not.
doesn't have any
Chris
law.
Wallace
Would you-
himself
He has no law
looked in the
enforcement
task
support,
force
almost
That's
nothing.
not-
and said,
Look,
Mr.
all right, who do you
President,
have?
it's
Name
not in
one
there.
group that supports
Biden
you.
does
Name one
not
group
want
that
to.
came out and
Bernie
supported
didn't
you.
even want to
Go ahead.
defund the police.
Think, we have time.
Bernie
don't have
did
time
not
to do
want
anything.
to defund.
All
right.
He did not.
Name
Bernie
one
does
law
not support
enforcement group
defund the police.
that came out and
I think,
supported
gentlemen,
you,
I think
Joe.
I'm going to take back the
There aren't.
moderator's
I don't
role.
think there
and
are.
It's like a
and I wanna get
generational
to
thing.
Another subject, which is the issue of
even
protests
Bernie doesn't,
in
guys.
many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you'd stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never
prosecuted.
called for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You had never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to bring in the National Guard and knock off.
Yeah, a lot of
100
people
days
are
of
agreeing
riots.
with Biden that Biden line in the suburbs was good.
Out of the way.
Where he said the risk to the suburbs are climate change and COVID, not people moving in.
The killer of the young man in the middle of the street, they shot him, and for 3 days,
President Trump,
Portland wouldn't do anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals. They took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, his own former spokesperson said, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that. And so here's the But here's the point. The point is that's what he keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, and every single solitary time.
Okay, and to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his statement.
No, you have
his
repeatedly.
Statement. Wait,
you have
just
no. You've been talking back
made
and
a
forth.
Statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
Sir.
I would love to end it.
If you want to switch seats.
We
just
very
does
quickly
not
can do
follow
that,
the
but
rules of this
National
debate.
Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared
willing to do
specifically
that, but
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
Who would
white
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a
he's not doing it.
problem.
He's not fucking doing it. It's the
This
easiest.
is a left wing.
Because as much as he says,
Antifa's an idea, not
Biden's
an organization.
willing to criticize the left because he's scared of them. Trump's scared of his own supporters.
His FBI director said.
Well, then you know what?
We're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're moving.
When a bat hits you over the head, that's not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is
administration
bad.
tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no idea. is that are
Antifa is a dangerous,
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump and
you ought to be
Biden
careful
records.
with them. They'll overthrow you.
When
in
a
2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton.
Over
where it was a
100,000
whole big
people have
con
basically
job.
tweeted
But despite going through all of these things,
that,
where I had to fight
Bernie
both
would have
flanks and
been
behind
doing
me
much
and
better
and
than either
above,
of these guys.
There has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A
Forgot about
fixing
Space
of
Force.
The VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill.
Yeah, it's
when
because
you leave
the
office,
Republicans
you don't
blocked
leave
them.
any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add
No, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah,
Because-
yes,
okay.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about
I'm
Hunter?
talking about my son, Beau Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Beau. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
you know
got
Beau.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
for
wasn't dishonorably
cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None
became
of that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made a
son,
fortune.
My son,
and he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem.
I don't know. Like, I know, like, Trump's vision is that, like, his people don't care about hypocrisy.
All right,
but
he wasn't giving
kids are
tens of
fuck
millions
ups,
of
right?
dollars.
And, like, a lot of them are, like, ensconced in really bad stuff.
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the
I
American
mean, I get
people
why
would
he's bringing
rather
a bow
hear
there
about more
because his
substantial
he wants to get that the veterans are losers and suckers money,
judgment call here,
which was
a big
scandal a few months ago.
True.
Gentlemen,
that report is totally discredited. Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
You know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging.
I guess they
now.
are talking
have
about climate
burned
change.
Millions of acres.
He must have.
They have.
He must have listened to the
displaced
criticism because
hundreds
that was
of
everyone was
thousands
saying.
of people.
Like, you got to talk
When state
about
officials
it, Chris.
there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, "I don't think the science knows." Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe
it was good that
about the
Biden,
science
stuck
of
up for
climate
people
change, and what
facing
will
some
you
addiction
do
issues
in
there.
the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and
like,
air.
this really does show that, like,
air.
look,
We have
Biden's
now the
awful, but,
lowest
like,
carbon.
Trump's a
If you
whole
look at our numbers
another
right now,
level of awful.
we are doing
Let's be right back.
phenomenally.
Get some more water.
But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very exciting for a lot of people.
You believe that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of this planet?
I think a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those
Ali
calls.
Velshi says it's been the first time in 8 years since we've gotten one, because we didn't get one in 2016 either. We didn't get a climate change question, apparently, according to Ali Velshi.
Major country.
Which, I mean, like, surprises me, because you would have thought we got at least one last time, but,
trees
you know, I've tried to forget 2016.
Much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground. That's burning down because of a lack of management.
But, sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars and trucks?
Well, not really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by $3,500.
In the case of California, they've simply ignored
No, but you would take a lot of cars
rollback
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And I'm okay with electric cars, too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Right. Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035.
Conservatives are blaming Chris
and
Wallace
zero net
if you go on
emission
Twitter
of
right
greenhouse
now.
gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles.
Like
making sure we can do that. We're going to put
teaming up against
500,000
Trump,
charging stations.
or teaming up against
and
Trump with
all the
Biden,
highways
like helping
that
Joe
we're going to be
Biden.
building in the future.
I don't
we're
see
going
that.
to build an economy that,
If anything,
in fact,
a lot of
is
other
going
people are
to
saying that
provide
he hasn't been
the ability
insistent
us
enough.
to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that, in fact, is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, makes sure that he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is the guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to
Biden doesn't support the Green New Deal,
and
unfortunately.
rebuild the building.
No,
it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the
the whole world
cows.
is counting on us
That's not
to end
true either,
this.
right?
Not
This is a 100 trillion.
November
That's
3rd.
more money than our
So,
country
tell
could
my
make
Americans
in
to
100
please.
years. If it was
not the case.
All right, let me
Make Trump not be president.
Because I actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good-paying jobs.
Let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's
at all.
he did say.
You made it up.
He did say that.
And here's the deal.
He did say that.
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard.
He might have been musing,
good
but he did say
jobs
that.
by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now, on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is
not
not
$20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
the Green
well,
New
you want to
Deal
rebuild everything.
is
Biden
not
doesn't
my
support
plan.
the Green New
Right.
Deal.
If
He
he
doesn't.
knew anything
Wait,
about,
wait.
if he
Gentlemen?
knew
He
anything
made a
about
statement about the
Green New Deal.
military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
What
not
he
true.
did
Sir,
is he
you're done
said
in this segment.
he called
Mr.
the
Vice-
military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
He said
That was
stupid
fucking awesome.
bastards.
That was
Sir,
one of the few.
stop.
I would never
Guys,
say that.
play
to
it.
the
Stop.
military.
That
Play
was
it.
hilarious
Go ahead.
when he called them
Mr.
stupid
Vice
bastards.
President,
He was clearly
answer
joking, and it was
his,
funny.
His final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your
the
environmental
Green New
changes
Deal,
will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact,
That's
are
weird, though. He
great
says the Green New.
polluting
He doesn't.
plants.
Again, he
you
doesn't
support
support the Green New Deal.
Pardon me?
Do you support
No, I don't support the Green
Oh,
New Deal.
you don't? Oh, well, that's a
You
big
let-
statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just
Biden-
lost the radical left. That's done.
I support
Oh, you
the
don't?
Biden plan that I put forward.
The left
Biden
that
plan,
supports
which is different
Biden is
than
under
what
no
he
illusions
calls
that
the
he
radical
sucks,
Green
right?
New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment. Election integrity.
we know
As
that.
we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election? And what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com, decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source
true.
of,
Mail-in ballots
of
are
being
safe.
manipulated and cheating.
You're more like David
They
Dole's
said
talked
that.
about this. You're more
The
likely
fact
to get
is
struck
that
by
there are gonna be
lightning than
millions of
commit
people
voter
because
fraud
of
in the
COVID
U.S.
that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote, because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting, because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If
This is
you're
good
able
by
to
Biden.
vote early in your state, vote early.
This is good
if
by
you're able
Biden.
to vote in person, vote in
You
person.
will determine
vote
the
whatever
outcome
way
of
is
this
the
election.
best way for you.
Trump has not
because
said that.
you
Trump
will-
has
he
basically said, "I
stop
cannot
you
lose."
from being
This is
able to
good.
determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not, when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen.
See, this is
So
where I
vote.
disagree. This is where
Just make
Bernie
sure
disagrees
you
with Biden.
understand. You
Where Bernie
have
has
it
said,
in
look,
your control to
he
determine
could
what
try to
this
fight
country's
it.
going to look like
But
the
I
next
think
4
that
years.
Biden
Is it
can't
going to
take the
change
tone
and
Bernie
get 4
does
more
on
years of
this.
these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So
You guys might see my
when I
cat
listened
Smokey
to
in the
Joe
background
talking
there
about
speaking.
a transition.
If you're new,
there's been no
be sure to say hi.
transition from when I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition, because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They
not
started
true.
from the
They didn't
day
try to
I
do a
won,
coup.
and even before I won.
Hillary-
from the day
Hillary
I came down the
recognized
escalator with our
the
first
next
lady.
morning
They were a disaster. They were a disgrace
that
to
he
our
won,
country.
and they were
we've caught
like,
them.
no,
We've
it's not
caught 'em
comparable.
all.
Hillary
We've got
recognized
it
the
all
result.
on tape. We've
She was
caught 'em
really-
all. And
she
by
was
the
a
way,
bad
you gave
sport
the
about
idea
it,
for the Logan
but she
Act
recognized
against
the
General
result.
Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense, and President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay? Solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country.
Republicans are totally misrepresenting the cost of the Green New Deal, but that's not
They found
surprising.
some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what?
They're not.
We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say, you have to have your ballot in by November 10th. November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that.
Sir,
all run by Democrats.
2 minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President
a
Trump,
it's a rigged election.
you're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster.
100% projection by Trump.
That it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what are you going to do about it? If there are millions of ballots going out right now,
what you do is you go and vote. You do a solicited ballot, and that's okay, or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people...
You go and vote. You go and vote.
But
like
what I'm
they,
saying is,
like they used to in the old...
Millions of people...
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending... They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia, mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well.
There is no evidence
this is
of
not
that.
going
Vice
to end
President
well.
This is Trump. He's trying to delegitimize the election. This is what he's doing.
Decade or more.
He's trying to delegitimize the election. So when
you don't have to solicit
he
the
tries
ballot,
to invalidate mail-in voting broadly defined,
what we're saying
he can get away with it, or at least he feels he can, because people think it's bad.
By election day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because he knows the outcome.
You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on this, Vice President Biden.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes a statement like that.
Excuse me. Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud, historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court, with a Justice Barrett, will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this, because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you have 80 million ballots sent in and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already there's been
fraud.
Now, mail service delivers
wait a minute, gentlemen. The final question is, in 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them, until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase
This is a good point.
in
I mean,
mail-in
if
balloting,
you could
we are not
make it
going to
easier
know
and start
on election
counting them
night
in advance,
who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be
processing
weeks,
them in advance.
until we find out who the
Trump's
new
goal
president is.
is
So first for
mail-in
you, sir,
votes get
finally
held back
for the vice president. I hope neither of you will
because they
interrupt
get held
the other.
back. I can be winning
Will
on
you
night
urge
one
your
and then
supporters
stop the
to
counting.
stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them
what the
to
fuck
do it.
he's doing
As
here
you
is
know,
he's
today
telling
there
his
was a big
supporters
problem.
to
In
spy on
Philadelphia,
fellow
they went
people
in to
and
watch.
intimidate
They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what,
does that
from
mean,
a common sense,
does that mean you're going to tell your people to take to the
it means you have a fraudulent election. You're
And what are
sending
you
out
gonna do?
80
And
million
what would you
ballots.
do about that?
They're not equipped to. These
That's
people
the
aren't
question,
equipped
right?
to handle it.
Chris
Number
Wallace
one.
is right.
Number
That's
two,
the question.
they cheat.
What's Trump going to do? Is he going to tell his supporters to
ballots in a
launch
waste
coup?
paper basket 3 days
Honestly,
ago,
none of
and
this
they
is
all had the
hyperbole.
name military ballots. They
What
were
is he
military.
going to do?
They all had the
If
name
he
Trump on
loses,
them.
but he thinks
Vice President Biden, Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day.
This is good by Biden
And
here.
there's
Nice and
thousands
calm,
of
just
ballots,
to
it's gonna
count the
take
ballots.
time to do it. And by the
I
way,
can lose.
our
It's
military,
possible. I hope
they've
I
been
don't.
voting by ballots since at the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a
but-
look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
I asked you had an opportunity to
Look at
respond.
Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
Honest ballot count.
We're going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah.
And we'll be covering that
Salt
debate
Lake
as well,
City.
probably.
The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris.
It'll be a little bit
We'll debate at 9 p.m. Eastern
less
that
crazy,
night.
I'm
We hope
guessing.
you watch. Until then, thank you.
And probably both
good night.
Pence and Harris will be sharper than Trump and Biden, but we'll have to see about that. So, guys, I mean, I'm going to wrap up the stream. I might do a video responding to some of the things we saw, but I want to thank you for watching this with me. I want to thank you for having me be a part of this evening for you. If you haven't yet, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. It's a good channel for politics analysis, and I'll be covering subsequent debates and, of course, the election itself. In addition, if you want to support the channel, you can do so via Patreon, via PayPal. You can become a member of the channel here. But this was great. It was an awful debate in a lot of ways. Biden didn't have a great performance, but all in all, this probably isn't the sort of performance Trump needed to start eating away at Biden's lead. So I would say that if you're Biden and you know you're leading, this is good enough. guys, we'll see you next week. We might do a live stream tomorrow night as well. It's our weekly live stream. I'll probably do that. But I will see you soon. Have a good one, guys.